Howdy YouTube and fellow preppers, this is Geordie Prepper, and my gravity filter was starting to filter the water on the slow side, and I was thinking about it, and it's been at least 3 or 4 months since I last cleaned the filters. So what I thought I would do is I would clean the filters, but I would show you how I do it and what I use. So what I use is some clean kitchen towels. This is simply for putting the filters on, just if you need to rest them somewhere. They're obviously quite delicate, so you don't want to drop them on a hard surface, and you don't want them rolling around. The actual gravity filter itself, I'll clean the outside exterior of it, and I'll lay it down on these towels also. One thing that you want to do when you clean the filters is you want to use some personal protective equipment. We're going to be using a very small amount of bleach, but there's also other reasons why you'd want to be using gloves. These are just things that I use in my first aid kit. They're just, you can get like 100 of them like really cheaply, so they're well worth having in large quantities anyways. But yeah, you want to be protecting your hands because the water I take is from the tap, so generally speaking it's safe. Now if something was to happen to the water supply and you are going to be putting water through the gravity filter from a questionable source, not only do you want to take precautions with that water, so you want to be filtering it or you want to be boiling it, you want to be making that water safe, but you also could be exposed to things that are in the water prior to it being safe, and you want to make sure that you have some protection on your hands, as these are the most tactile parts of the body that you're going to use to clean the filter. Obviously depending on the nature of the emergency, if there's any waterborne viruses or diseases happening in an area and you're using your gravity filter from the questionable source, it's also going to gunk up the filters quicker. So you're going to be cleaning the filters a lot quicker, but you also don't want to expose yourself to the things that are going around in an emergency situation. So that also brings us on to the use of bleach. Now I'm going to be filling the sink up with water, just lukewarm water, and I'm just going to be putting a very tiny amount of bleach in there. Now this is simply just to be on the safe side. I'm only putting a very small amount because, like I said, generally speaking, the water from the supply is quite safe. Now, obviously, in some sort of emergency, if you're having to process water, filter and purify water, then you would tend to use a little bit more of the bleach. You're also going to need, just for the exterior of the gravity filter, because it is a high quality stainless steel, and this is just really for aesthetics, is some sodium bicarbonate, which we're going to use to clean the outside of the gravity filter unit. Never touch the inside of the gravity filter, you don't want any cross contamination, and that's also the other reason to use clean cloths, because we're going to use these to dry the exterior. Now you don't have to clean the exterior of the unit, but there is some areas which I'm going to point out which you need to check, particularly the water outlet, the spout, the tap. You're going to need to check around the outside of that in particular. But let's just start going through the routine now of how I clean my filters. So the first step is to just fill up your sink with some water. Like I said, we're going to use a tiny bit of bleach, so add the bleach in first. I mean just a tiny amount. You're just talking like a teaspoon or a tablespoon. That's literally it. And for the amount of water that it's going to go in, it's obviously not going to make that much of a difference, but it is going to make enough of a difference for the circumstances that we're in now, which is that the water that we're getting is clean. There's no problems. So we'll just scale the use of the bleach depending on the situation and the seriousness of the situation. So let's just fill the sink up now, and it'll just be lukewarm water. Just no difference to the touch if you put your hand in, and you just want to monitor the water as it's filling, just to make sure that it's not too hot and it's not too cold. Alright, so there's the sink filled up now. We don't want it up to the very top because we're going to rinse the filters off in the water from the tap once that we've scrubbed it in this water here. So the next step is to remove the filters from the gravity filter housing. Okay, so we've got the top section of the gravity filter here. This is where water goes in and gets filtered with the filters. We've got the hand protection on now because obviously, you know, there's not too much to worry about now about the water that we're putting in here. But obviously if you were taking water from a questionable source and you were filtering it through a gravity filter and you were taking the gravity filter and cleaning it, you wouldn't want contamination from anything around the filters getting on your hands. So it's good to practice these things now. Obviously there's no emergency at the minute, you know. The water from the tap is pretty much safe when you're handling it. But it's good to practice these things and get in the habit of doing it. So what you need to do is you need to put one hand on the base of the top where the wing nut is, and then you want to put the other hand and you want to just hold the filter quite firmly but not too firm, and you want to put most of your support at the base of the filter, and then what you need to do is just undo the wing nut at the bottom. This is the section where the water actually drips out of. It's on the other side of the unit and it's sealed with a washer and wing nut. So you gently just turn the wing nut until it's free and then pop it in the water that's in the sink, and then just gently cradle the filter out of the unit. And then you should see that there it is. And what we need to do, I'll just put this to one side for a second. The areas of concern that we're going to be looking at is the washer. I can see that there's some scum build up on it already. There's some scum there which is going to be washed off. So we'll put that to one side, and then obviously what we're doing is we're cleaning the entire length of the filter all the way around. Okay, so we have the filter here, the washer which was at the end of it, which goes onto this section here through the bottom of the gravity filter unit itself. That goes into the water there. Because it's got bleach in it, it's obviously going to kill anything that's on the wing nut. Because that's on the other side of the dirty water before it's passed through, after it's passed through the filter, obviously there's not much of concern in that area. But what we are concerned with is this area around here. The scum build up on the actual washer, which goes on the filter like this. This area here is obviously in the top unit where the questionable water is housed before being filtered through. So obviously over time you get some build up on this washer, so it's very important to clean that washer. We'll just put it to one side in a minute because we clean it last. You obviously don't want the scum from the washer on any section of the filter. You don't want to cross contaminate it any further. It's actually been separated from the filter itself because it's just been building up down there, and the water goes down, so there's nothing that's going to go like reverse up and contaminate this section of the filter. So you don't want any chance of that to contaminate it when you're cleaning it. So you have to be very careful about cross contamination and just handle the filter very carefully. But what we will do is we'll just clean around here and then up and down all around the filter. I just use a brush, and basically the pressure that you put on it is just almost the weight of the brush and just a little bit extra from yourself. So first of all we'll just stick some the brush in the water here, and we'll just gently clean around this base bit, and we'll make sure that we get onto the threads of the actual filter here. Now what you don't want to do is you don't want to put anything that goes inside the filter. So just be very careful when you're doing this bit. And then we've done that. So the next bit is just to submerge the filter in the water. And just like I said, just very lightly, just using the weight of the brush, almost. Just go up and down. And as you're doing that, just gently turn the filter. Just splash some water on it as you're doing it. Just very gently. And what you may want to do is you may just want to take a note of a particular feature on the filter, and then once you've done a 360-degree full rotation, then that's basically it. You know, you've cleaned the filter. Depending on the source of the water that you put in your gravity filter, it's going to depend on how much gunk is built up around the filter, and also how much time has went before you last cleaned it. But I can already see here there's a difference, and it's much better. So once you went up and down across the length of the filter, just hold it carefully and then just do around the top here. And then what we're going to do is we're going to rinse it. That's it, one filter done. So we'll do the other one. So I've done both filters, cleaned them, and obviously you want to do that at the beginning so the water is as fresh as it can be, and there's going to be nothing contaminating the filters, the outside of the filters when you're doing it, both cleaning it and rinsing it. But like I said, the washers which are inside the top of the unit, these are exposed to the water that you're filtering. And as you can see here, they get coated with a fine layer of buildup of bacteria. Now obviously inside the filters they have nanoparticles of silver, etc. So inside the filter itself, they're completely fine. They're sealed off from these washers. But these washers are in the area of the gravity filter below a certain level in the top of the unit. These washers just simply lie in the water. So if you can imagine, the filter is going through it like there, and then obviously there's this sort of thickness of water that's permanently at the bottom of the gravity filter. So if anything, this area is the area that you need to watch out for in particularly. Now the top of the unit is obviously completely separate from the base of the unit, but what you don't want is this building up to a point where it starts to cause a problem for the actual filter itself. So just put these in last. There's obviously a film layer there that needs to come off, so just put them in the water and then just give them a rinse. So what we do when we finish washing them, we just give them an inspection. Just make sure they're clean, they're free of any of the build-up that we just took off. And then basically the gravity filter is ready for reassembly. This top section of the gravity filter is where all the dirty water goes into. The two holes at the bottom there, where the filters feed through into the bottom unit. Now the bottom unit we don't touch when we're cleaning. But this top unit, because it's exposed to questionable water sources, water from questionable sources, what we do is we just give this a quick rinse. Obviously there's bleach in that water, so we just leave it in there for a bit. You can clean the outside of it at this point if you want. But what we really want to do is we just want to get it exposed to some cleaner water and then just let it flush out. Now I'm only using 2 filters at the minute, but the unit can handle 4. So what you also want to do if you're using it in this way is you just want to check that the rubber stoppers there are free of any debris like the washers had on them. And also what you want to do at this point, if you just want to get some water into the unit at the top, let it drain out, and then you just want to be checking that no water's leaking from those two stopped up holes there. The water's only coming out of here. I know that they're only coming out of there. And then just check around here. Now this part here is exposed to the clean water area. So what we want to do is that we want to just give that a rinse. And that's it, it's ready to have the filters put back inside now. An important thing to mention when you're placing the filters back into the top of the housing and when you're tightening up these wing nuts is not to do them up too tight. A good rule of thumb is tight but not bloody tight, and you want to be on a bit more on the lenient side when you're placing filters back into the top of a gravity filter. So you want it tight, but you don't want to be putting too much force in. You want to be putting them in about roughly half the amount of force that you would do if you were hand tightening any other sort of wing nut. So just be very gentle and you'll get a feel for, you know, what's tight enough. But just be careful because they can break if you tighten them too tight. So just be very careful when you are doing this part. Once you're at the end of cleaning the gravity filter, what you want to do is there's just one particular area you need to check, and that's the washer, which goes at the beginning of the tap there. Let me just see if I can bring that a bit closer. So what you want to do is you would just want to check around that washer, and like with the washers that were at the base of the filter, you just want to make sure that there's no build up around there. The only other area to check is the actual outside tap, and you know, again we can see there that there's nothing really of any concern. And the other part to check is just the bottom there. Just make sure that there's no build up around the outlet there. There is a slight bit of build up of something there, so I'm going to clean that off, but then that's this bottom section done. There's nothing internal that you need to do. You don't need to clean it. About two or three cleans. I will clean the base unit just to be safe, but that's it. You shouldn't need to touch this bottom unit on the inside. The only thing that I'm going to do is just give the external bit of clean there. You can see that it's just water splashing on it and it just leaves some marks, so we're going to take that off with the sodium bicarb. And then the only other bit that's left is the actual rubber ring which goes around it. Just check that for any build-up of any bacteria. In my case it's sitting on the kitchen sink, the area where I wash dishes, so you do get standing water which collects around the base of this rubber seal here. It's basically just to stop the gravity filter from slipping. So like I said, you know, depending on the situation, you're going to have to make sure that everything that comes into contact with the gravity filter is clean. So what we do is we just put this into the water that we've used to clean it, clean the filters and everything, and we just leave it for a little bit while we clean the exterior of the gravity filter.